sports fans. Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen, on a Monday. So much to break down. Eagles and Chargers on a Monsters Inc. night Monday. So much is going on. I cannot wait for this one. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever and however you may be watching or listening. Thanks for making us part of your day. It's going to be an exciting week because Thursday is going to be a fun one. We got Eric Warfield, the former NFL corner. He's going to be live and joining us here on the program. I'm excited to have him aboard. So much shakeups in college football, including the college football official playoff look and what we just witnessed in the NFL this whole entire week. So, first of all, I want to get into what I just saw last night, which was against the Houston Texans and the Kansas City Chiefs. And let me just start off with the Houston Texans. And so I had them picking them to win the division. Now, clearly, the Colts surprised a lot of people until Daniel Jones went down, and now he's out for the season. And then the Jacksonville Jaguars are leading the division in the South. And so then in comes the up and cooking Houston Texans, who they're not quite out of the water yet. And in my opinion, watching the Houston Texans physically on defense, they're that good. And then on top of everything else, like this team, you can't even stop them. And they limited up a lot of the rushing. And you know who was the lead rusher for Kansas City last night? It was Patrick Mahomes. And so, inarguably, you could tell Kansas City is just not who they were before. And what's unfortunate about this is that Kansas City now has to deal with the two other teams that are competitive within their division. And then they got to deal with the rest of the league. So I feel as though Kansas City, their dominance and their reign in the dynasty is clearly over. It doesn't mean that they're not a competitive team. But Houston did a lot of things right. And CJ Stroud, even though that he wasn't as flashy as you would want him to be, but 15 of 31, 203 passing yards and a touchdown. And the defense forced 3 interceptions. Houston has quietly, like what I thought Baltimore would have looked like, they've quietly been on a streak themselves, 5-game winning streak. And what's interesting about this is that Houston had to deal with 2 quarterbacks, not just CJ Stroud, but Davis Mills. So what they've done is that they've gone to the simple stuff. And like a lot of other NFL teams, you had to stick to the simple stuff that was on script. You had to make sure that your backup quarterback, and that's who Davis Mills is. He's competent. You had to make sure that he made all the right throws. And the minute he did, it changed everything. So that's where, starting a lot of this up is where I would have expected Kansas City and where I've expected Houston, where this game was going to go. Full-on defense. Texans got after Patrick Mahomes. Of course, there were a couple of drop passes. And then Patrick Mahomes wasn't quite his best. And I'll get to Kansas City here in just a second. But Houston, to me, I'd hate to be the team that has to face them up and into the first round because they're physical, they get after it, and they know exactly what they're doing. And DeMeco Ryans, he's a hell of a coach. Like, you can't dispute it. So that to me shows Houston is not completely out of the conversation. And clearly they're not. So Houston, in my opinion, if they're going into the first round and the one team that's going to be facing them, you better be careful with this team. They could get after you. They could get physical. And it's one of the bigger things that you got to love about these teams. So I really think it's remarkable. And the way this game has gone about, it's remarkable to a T, because this is a team that we know top to bottom had suffered with injuries, but they are getting healthy at the right time. No question. And we got a technical difficulty now. Damn it. Sorry there, folks. We had a little bit of technical difficulty that came up. But I do think it's interesting to a T. So I think the Texans, they're for real. I think they are a team that everybody should be worried about. So I just think with how they've handled Kansas City was big last night. And so that leads me to talk about Kansas City now. So the AFC West right now, as it shows, there's going to be a new division winner, clearly. And it's going to be between either Denver or the Chargers. And the Chargers play tonight. And Denver, they ended up taking care of their division rival, the Raiders. So Kansas City, listen, Kansas City fans, and I've had to say this several times, is that enjoy the rain while it lasted. And what I meant by that is because the NFL always stands for not for long. Okay, that's just what it is. You can't BS it. You can't change it over. And when teams start figuring it out, and that's what the AFC West had to deal with, because you got to remember, the NFL is all about different waves. They are. In this league, you cannot afford to be a team that you know that has been caught up in your reign of dominance. And you also can't even be a team that is more ego-driven than anything else, because then that takes your mind away from a lot of things. So the Chiefs now, this will be the first time ever in years, and it snaps their 9 straight division titles. But what this means is that the division has gotten tougher. The Chiefs didn't quite address a lot of positions, and this kind of leaves them in a position of where do we go from here? And that's one of the biggest problems. So I think, in my opinion, with the way that I've looked at this, is Kansas City knows they're going to have a lot of things to think about come the off season, and which is fine. Everybody knows that. Teams don't often look the same the minute more teams in their division start to get competitive. And that's a fact. And so the Chiefs now have to deal with the predicament that with Jim Harbaugh and Sean Payton as new sheriffs in town in the division, it's now going to become just open circle. So I was really impressed with how Houston played up in that entire ferocious defensive game. It was incredible. But it also shows there's a reality there. And then all of a sudden now you got all these other teams that are getting competitive. And so that's where the Chiefs really have to think about this. It's not a complete rebuild, but it is a complete reboot. And the Chiefs have to be honest about this. You cannot go into the season and thinking, oh, yeah, it's going to be simple. We're going to reign the AFC West division. Well, if that's the case, then eventually Tom Brady's AFC East dominance had to end at some point, right? And then at the same time, like Buffalo, you've got New England coming back in, crawling back in to being division leaders right now. So it's a shift for everybody. The Texans know this too. The NFL doesn't, it's funny. We talk about the NBA a lot, and the NBA is not even driven by dynasties anymore either. And so the NFL is in the same similar predicament where there's not a lot of dynasties. And so the Kansas City Chiefs now, their dynasty is not going to be the same. Yeah, they got knocked out with their division, but they could still be a team that can make it into the wild card playoff. And then maybe people would think differently about them, and their dominance might still continue. But it won't be the open window in which they've had it in the past in their division, because the AFC West eventually had to get competitive. I mean, Sean Payton, Jim Harbaugh. And I thought with Pete Carroll coming into the division, it was going to be different. Like, where did things go wrong? And that was where the Kansas City Chiefs, they had to be honest with themselves, and they did not have to basically be the same similar team that they're so used to, and their dominance was going to reign. It didn't matter in the end. And that was that. And so I think with Kansas City now, it's going to be different. And the AFC is constantly shaping the landscape. And it's not even a completely dominant conference at this point right now, because there's not a lot of teams that you truthfully can depend on. And that's a fact. So I think there's just a lot of changes that are happening. You're not used to seeing it. And that's exactly where we are in today's NFL. It's different now. So I was surprised at it. But with Kansas City, they're going to have to come to this reality. They'll still be a competitive team, but it's going to be more reboot, and it's going to have to require building within the draft because of how much money that you'll have up in cap. You're going to have to cut ties with players. It's going to be hard for them to even think of considering. So you're going to have to come to that predicament. But in the meantime, they'll still be a competitive team regardless, but it's just not going to be as simple and as easy as people think it is. A great show we got lined up. I have heard so much backlash. And even I had to, give my thoughts about what's been going on in the college football landscape. So not a lot of people are happy with, Notre Dame not making it into the college football playoff. Nobody is happy about that. It's just unlucky for the Irish, but I'm going to express my opinion on that coming up next. And then also, I watched that snowy game in Cincinnati and in Buffalo, and I got a lot of my 2 cents to really break down about the Buffalo Bills, because right now it was ugly, but it's going to be so much reliability on one person and one person only. I'll get into that here as well. All righty, folks. Well, like I said before, the season is upon us. And the cold weather, but also the holiday festivities, and as per usual, you got to love every minute of it during the holiday season. And that's where Payday Fantasy is your number one go-to player pick'em fantasy, especially for tonight's game of the Eagles and the Chargers. It's going to be a lot of fun. When you sign up, free $5 entry. So when you sign up, you get free $5 just by choosing us this holiday season and giving it a shot. And then also, when you deposit, you click the link as well into the description. But when you sign up, you'll get 100% of deposit match, a bonus of up to $100. And that's by using the code SNAKE this holiday season. My gift to you, that's 100 deposit matchup every time you deposit by using the code SNAKE. That's up to $100. So you continue to deposit, the matchups become matched up. 100% guaranteed. Check out Payday Fantasy for yourself. Pick the player, pick the outcome, sit back, and get paid with Payday Fantasy today. Good luck. Philadelphia against LA.
Looking for a show with the best takes and opinions? Want a show with the best coverage around the world of sports? Jam-packed with an all-star interview lineup? Then the best place to find it all, sports and entertainment, is right here. Join Jake Silva on the Snake Sports Talk Show, presented by SeatGeek and BetUS. Weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on Sports Wave Network. On the snowy day, and especially here up in Denver, Colorado, where I live in, we got some snow, but it wasn't as crazy as some of the snow that we got up north in upstate New York. And so breaking this down, the AFC right now is just wide open. It's for the taking. And you got to understand something. Is that there is always some sort of opening with all these AFC teams and the way that they look right now. They look vulnerable. And so Buffalo, of course, it was a pretty interesting game, but it was fun in the snow. I can't complain about, Buffalo winning up and into this game. But what I can give my 2 cents about this is that it did not seem convincingly for the Bills to win against the Bengals. Because Joe Burrow, if you realize it, it was a tale of two different halves. Joe Burrow was Joe Burr all the way through in the cold, and he was locked in. And then all of a sudden, the offense for Buffalo was so stagnant, and you could see it on Sean McDermott's face that he's got to get this thing cleaned up. There's just no room for error. And that's what's been part of the biggest problem. And so now, because of everything that's happened in Buffalo with their defense, I don't quite trust because of the amount of points that they've been giving up to certain opponents. Several times now, they've given up 30-plus points to defenses. Now, granted, it's a snowy game. I'm not going to harp on that it was that simple. But I also do think the offense just seemed so stagnant because in the second half, they started charging up. So Josh Allen, 22 of 28, 251 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and rushed for 78 yards and a rushing touchdown. And so all it had to take was putting the ball in Josh Allen's hands. And even I seen the body language on Josh Allen. Like, this is inexcusable. This is also a part in which, why are we trailing up at half? And then at the same time, why does the offense look that stagnant? Well, I think a lot of this has to deal with you didn't quite address a wide receiver in the trade deadline like you should have. And I get that. It's not as cheap as you think. And at the same time, like, Buffalo needed to run the ball. If you're in an inclement weather, like snow or heavy rain, you got to run the football. You got to start getting old school. You got to build in the trenches and fight through the trenches. The difference of it is, I saw a lot of different plays that didn't seem great.
Like, it looked kind of ugly, but then they turned it around and made it look great. So, like, you saw the T. Higgins one-handed catch. You saw Josh Allen take the ball and run for X amount of yards to get a tutty. And then several times he threw to Dawson Knox, threw to his tight end, threw to a couple receivers. And, like, is this sustainable for Buffalo to go through? I have no idea. Because you go into the next few weeks and Buffalo, like, yeah, I was questioning so much about having them in number 10, but I was confident they were going to make it through, and they did. And part of the reasons of this is because Buffalo, I want to believe that this team could do it from the offense, but defensively looks completely different. And it hadn't it been for the pick six and the batted ball that turned into an interception, Cincinnati could have won that game. So Buffalo, it was a good win. Let me just be fair and be clear. It was a good win, and it worked out. So in the end, Buffalo, you got to change something up because this ain't working. And once again, like, it's all going to come down to what's going to happen with Sean McDermott at the end of the year. Because either you're going to keep him, and I've said he's the modern day Marty Schottenheimer, because he's either going to help you to win those games, coaching wise, and then making the adjustments as needed, or he's going to get in the way. And that's often with what's been happening with some of these teams, is that especially for defensive coaches, it really hasn't looked well for guys like Mike Tomlin and the rest of them. It really hasn't. And that's just what's the unfortunate part. So I don't know how they're going to tackle this on. But as I've said before, and I think this is also really interesting, how the rest of the season will shape up as we get into the playoffs. If you think that's sustainable, then how on earth could they possibly move through the rest of the season and go into the playoffs and say to themselves, yeah, we're pretty confident here? I don't know. I think, to me, I'm concerned. If I Buffalo, yeah, it's a win. You won in the cold. You won in the snow. That was a lot of fun. But I just don't think this is going to be the kind of thing that's going to be sustainable from here on out, the longer that the season stretches out. Time now for the news.
And now, here we go. Hey everyone, it's story time. This is the Hot Press.
All right, so moving up and on to some news. And so the Indianapolis Colts are going to be without Daniel Jones, their starting quarterback, as he has been listed out for the season with a torn Achilles. Crushing blow. But however, the Indianapolis Colts has made a call to a familiar face and is looking to work out retired quarterback Philip Rivers, which is interesting because he had signed a one-day contract with the Chargers to retire as a Charger. And it has been mentioned that the Colts, they were looking at Philip Rivers coming out of retirement and helping to see if the Colts are going to make it through, and hopefully with their quarterback that they've got in place. So right now, Riley Leonard, who was also in there up and into the game, he's now officially out with an injury. And on top of everything else, the Colts now are dealing with a predicament where they're going to be without their quarterback. And so that's going to be up to the Colts to really figure this out and how they're going to manage this very, very well. So the Colts right now, it's a really, really difficult situation for them, wholeheartedly, and how everything is going to be managed through. Great. Something's wrong here, guys. Hold on. There we go. All right. So, yeah, for the Colts, that's going to be difficult for them. It's upsetting news, but hopefully the Colts will get past this. I think it's interesting that they're bringing in a familiar face like Phillip Rivers, who had been in the league for quite a long time. But it's going to be interesting, though, one way or the other. But I really do hope for the Colts. It's going to be because it's going to be a fight through and through. All right. So some other news as well as the Cleveland Browns, who had ended up in a close loss matchup against the Tennessee Titans. However, though, they didn't keep their heads down because of the fact of quarterback Shedeur Sanders ended up shining his best. 3 touchdown passes, 1 interception. As Kevin Stefanski has mentioned that Shedeur Sanders, we're going to see him an awful lot more as we get into the end of the season. So I said this to everybody. Like, a lot of people feel like Shedeur Sanders is not everybody's cup of tea, and I don't even think he cares about that. But that doesn't mean that Shedeur Sanders cannot turn around and be a really good pro. I think he is good enough to be a franchise quarterback. I also do believe that what he's showcasing and what he's doing right now for this league is by far better than what other teams right now are offering for themselves. So this has really helped them out to a extensive way. And so for the Browns, for him to remain quarterback 1 is what we predicted, because Shedeur Sanders clearly is the better quarterback talent, clearly can throw a better ball than Dillon Gabriel. And Shedeur Sanders, who in the last few games, the Browns have been 1-2 in those starts, but here's something you also got to understand. He's completed 52% of his throws, has 769 passing yards, 5 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions, and he also rushed for 50 yards and got he also got a rushing touchdown in the middle of that. So one of the things that I think is also remarkable about, the Cleveland Browns needed to be honest with themselves. One, that's number 1. Number 2 is that you just had to be honest with the quarterback you got. But now they could go into the offseason and into the draft where you can honestly go and get really good defensive players. And that will help them get over the hump. And for that, I think Shedeur Sanders, he's doable as a quarterback. Yeah. You build your offensive line around him. You get him some weapons. They got a very good run game. And I think with Kevin Stefanski and what we're seeing is that there's parts of it that I think Stefanski, it's hard. And at the same time, like, he's playing for his job, and that's what's also the hardest part. So I think for Kevin Stefanski, you just have to be honest about this. And I think they have to be now in this situation with going with Shedeur Sanders and evaluating him even more, because Dillon Gabriel is not the answer. And Shedeur has been even more highly talented and accurate than what Dillon Gabriel's been. So that's the biggest thing there. Also, so the Heisman Trophy now, they've just announced their 4 Heisman Trophy finalists, and it's going to be between 3 quarterbacks and 1 running back. So the 3 quarterbacks this year, and I feel like it's going to be no doubt, is going to be Fernando Mendoza, Diego Pavia, running back Jeremiah Love, and Ohio State quarterback Julian Sayin. So those are the 4 that are now the finalists for the Heisman Trophy winner. And it's the first time ever in 58 years where Indiana has won their Big Ten championship, and Fernando Mendoza has led the charge. And Fernando Mendoza, he's been a hell of a quarterback all throughout this entirety of the season. And as a junior transferred from Indiana to from Cal, like, he's put on a hell of a resume. And there's no doubt that he's got MVP in his game. And I think for Fernando Mendoza, he's probably going to end up being the number 1 overall pick, if not the number 2. And I think it's clear because he's either going to be probably closer to like the New York Jets or the Las Vegas Raiders pick. But Fernando Mendoza is, in fact, the type of gamer that you know that you would want in your organization. So, and look, Julian Saint's been really good at Ohio State, and he's got another year to really prove himself. And then even with Diego Pavia, you know, to me, he's kind of got a little bit of a Johnny Manziel feel, but I think Pavia understands those pressures. So then there's Jeremiah Love, the running back. Clearly, he's going to be the number one running back out of this class amongst all the rest of them that I've seen all throughout the college football season. But it's going to really determine that from those players. And then the 3 quarterbacks and 1 running back, I think it's just going to be no doubt it's going to be Fernando Mendoza that's going to be making it out of this thing. So that's my prediction up and on that. But good to see the announcement up from there. All right, folks, there's your news.
And now, here we go. Hey everyone, it's story time. This is the Hot Press.
So college football, speaking of it, the college football playoff has now been officially announced and final. And college football, I love college football. I do. Love how tribal it is. I love how sometimes there's added drama and there's times in which, you know, it gives us all excitement. But the college football playoff and what you have to understand is that this college football playoff, unlike anything else that we've also seen throughout the entirety of the year, is even from last year, it was the first time ever that we had a 12-team playoff. And once it rolled out, all it basically described was that there needed to be more teams in the playoff because we were tired of seeing before teams, and everybody all complained about the 14 playoff, where it consisted of Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, and then sometimes you sprinkled in your Notre Dames, your Oregons, and Washingtons, and Michigans. Like, everybody did not like it. So they're like, that's unfair. It's unfair to the other programs that we need to extend this thing. So they did that. And they got into a 12-team playoff. And last year, look at who all was represented in the 12-team playoff. It wasn't Alabama. You had Ohio State. You had Tennessee. You had Penn State. And then you had the group of 5 teams, which was your Boise States, your SMUs, and that's it. And so this year, so the biggest knock right now is that Notre Dame was supposedly snubbed out of the college football playoff. And to be honest with you, and I hate to break hearts, but you were not. Notre Dame, you were not. Because for several reasons. Number one is you had 2 ranked opponents, Miami and Texas A&M. You lost to both. You needed to win one of those games, and they didn't. And they're having to pay the price. And for Notre Dame fans and their program and how they've really gone on about themselves, it's just not a good look. So this was the result in the college football playoff. For my radio audiences, I apologize, but this, I felt like the committee got right. Because in my opinion, if you're looking at this whole entire bracket, because where it starts up from, you've got your 4 best teams in the entire nation. Indiana at 1, Ohio State at 2, Georgia at 3, and Texas Tech at 4. And then there's Oregon, who even up and into the Big Ten. They're a competitive program. You've got Ole Miss. You've also got Texas A&M. You've got Oklahoma and Bama. And then there's Miami, and then Tulane and James Madison. So a lot of people are backlashing because they feel like James Madison, who the hell are they? They shouldn't even be in there, neither Tulane. Well, here's the reality. Tulane ended up having to win their conference because they had no choice. And I'm sure much like James Madison, they had no choice but to end up winning their conference. So what's the big whoop? And then at the same time, you're watching this right before your very eyes, and Notre Dame, as much as I love the program, as far as what they represent and the prestigious school that they are, it's a Catholic school. You got to understand something here. There's a lot of factors that does not favor to Notre Dame. One was obviously not winning either of those two ranked opponent games. Whose fault is that? It's not the college football committee's fault. You had Miami to start the year, you lost. You had Texas A&M, second chance, you lost. And Miami, they have their track record of 3 ranked opponents that they've played, and they've beaten them. And so Miami has a strong argument for this. I don't care what anybody says from that. Now, do I feel as though teams like Tulane and James Madison, what do we do about them? Well, James Madison, let me be honest with you. You know who was at James Madison before he took the job in Indiana? Kurt Cignetti. And he took an overhaul of a lot of his kids from that college program to go to Indiana and build an entire restructured culture there. And then Tulane, guess what? They're not going to have John Sumrall for next year because he's going to Florida. And John Sumrall is a very good offensive-minded coach. Okay, and Tulane, in the last few games, they've managed to be a ranked opponent, and they've also managed to play competitively amongst their opponents. So if you're going to sit there and you're going to whine because you're not there up and into the 12-team playoff, and what this is doing now is that this is reinforcing that we extend this to a 14-game playoff, okay? A 14-team playoff, and you're still not going to be happy. For what? This makes no sense. And one of the biggest factors about Notre Dame and why they're unlucky getting into the college football playoff is number one, you're a Big Ten program that doesn't want to admit you're a Big Ten program. So instead, you're independent because you can't tuck in your ego tails because you have that financial contract with NBC, because that's exactly what goes back into your program. And so not having a conference is also going to be hurting your chances, because remember, Notre Dame, when they last won the national title, there were about 25 plus teams that were without a conference. And once those programs figured it out, they're like, we need to get into a conference. We need to start building up a resume. It's like going in and you're buying a house. How the hell are you going to end up building up equity? You're not going to build equity by not being in a conference. That's literally what's happening with Notre Dame. The second thing is you are basically along the steps of a Penn State. The only difference of it is I feel like Notre Dame can be physical. The difference is Notre Dame can get the quarterback because Penn State couldn't. And now they're going to be changed up with Matt Campbell. So at this point now, Notre Dame really has to be honest with themselves, and they have to have a serious come to Jesus moment. How funny is that for a Catholic school? So again, I think for Notre Dame, you really have to be honest with yourself. The thing that I did not like is that they withdrew their name from being considered into the bowl games. I didn't like that because, first of all, you could go ahead and whine and pout and throw all your toys and all the rest of it all you want. It's not going to make a difference. It's not going to end up considering, and it's not going to end up changing anybody's, their opinion on this. It's not. It's college football. Get over it. And here's the other thing you also got to understand here. With James Madison, in the last 10 years, they have been national champions in the FCS. They've also been runner-ups in 2017. So when they won the title, it was 2016. 2017, they were runner-ups. 2019, they were runner-ups again. They joined the FBS in 22, and they became competitive. And then They earned their spot into the playoff in 25. And that was all of courtesy of who? Curt Cignetti. Let me repeat that. It was all Curt Cignetti from the end of the day. But what I think is also BS is that now you've got the Notre Dame athletic director, Pete Bevacqua, speaking up and then basically saying it was farce and total waste of time. And so I don't want to hear this crap. I don't want to hear about how they screwed y'all. You didn't even make it, like you did not have the resume, truthfully, to even support your case. And you expect me to have some sort of sympathy towards you? And look, this had nothing to do with Marcus Freeman at all. Marcus Freeman doesn't even have all that power. You also have to understand that too. He don't have all the power. He doesn't have all that say about pulling out the team out of the bowl games. And by the way, if you're worried about money and you're worried about bonuses, which I know you are, you just pulled yourself out of a bowl game. So it's just college football now, and this is what was also crazy. And Ndamukong Suh ended up coming out, and there was a post up on it. And he basically said, college football is not the same anymore. And Notre Dame just declined a bowl game, and let's talk about it. Notre Dame declining a bowl game is the headline, but it points to something much bigger. It's not about tradition. This is about incentives. The sport has changed faster than most people realize. In the old world, players played the bowl because it was the next game. They wanted reps, they wanted exposure, they wanted real pride for their school and team. But the new world looks different. NIL deals, transfer portals, roster turnovers, opt-outs from your best players is completely changing everything for college programs. It is not about players sitting out. It is not about the bowl itself. The reality is the sport moves faster now. Roster shifts overnight. Coaches recruit while managing the portal. NIL deals shape decisions. When the game changes as quickly, the decisions change with it. And I agree with it. Add in the playoff snub. Notre Dame won 10 straight and still got jumped. That frustration plays into it. There is also brand protection. A depleted roster in a low-stakes game can hurt recruiting momentum and perception. If the bowl cannot help you and it might hurt you, the calculation becomes simple. The truth is, college football is now part competition, part business, part player empowerment, and decisions look different when all three collide. You do not have to love it, but this is where the sport is headed. Adaptation is not optional. It is freaking required. And I absolutely love that from Ndamukong Suh, because here's the thing. Notre Dame being a prestigious school and everything else, you have to understand and realize is that this is why we put together the college football playoff in the first place, because we know the NIL deals are growing. They're getting bigger. The game's going faster, and a lot of decisions. I mean, think about it. You think everybody's fond about, the way Lane Kiffin, basically Irish, walked himself out of Ole Miss to go to LSU? It's all because he's waiting for that job up in Alabama to open up, and that ain't happening. It ain't happening at any point in time. So, listen, Notre Dame, get over yourselves, first of all. And the next thing is join a conference. Seriously, join a conference. You'll better help yourself that way. You can't build up equity if you got nothing to build off of. That's the other biggest problem. The next problem is that you're basically playing up against ranked teams and you lost to both of them. You got to win your ranked games. You got to have something to end up representing your case. And not only that, you were playing against 5 different programs who were at the bottom 100 in defense. That's not going to help your case. And even if you look at your group of 5 schools like Tulane and James Madison, That shouldn't bother you as much because here's the deal. Last year, we had Arizona State from the Big 12 winning their conference, going into the top 4 teams. We also had Boise State in a group of 5 who was also in the top 4. And I didn't even agree with that either. I love Boise State, but I didn't agree with that. And so you cannot make everybody happy in life because you know what you do? You people please. It adds resentment, and people just want the cutthroat, straightforward answer. And the answer is, sorry, Notre Dame, you're not making it into the college football playoff. Like, do you hear Vanderbilt complaining or any of the other schools complaining? Makes no sense. And listen, the bowl games, did you know there was money in the bowl games too? You're walking away up from that. So you're losing out up and on monies and all of the rest of that stuff. And then you think about the incentives and you feel like, well, we got a lot of pride. Man, sit down. Sit down. Give me a break. Complaining over nothing over this. Like, you can't make everybody happy. Like, no matter what sport it is, you can't make everybody happy. All you could do is just simplify the game. Simplify it. That's all you can do. Take a break up from here. Coming back, got a lot of rest to talk about up and into the NFL because there's a lot of truths up from here. But it's exciting, though. Absolutely love it all. Don't go anywhere.
Want to find your seat for the event of your choice but can't get one that fits your desire or your budget? Well, my friends, SeatGeek has you covered. SeatGeek is the official sponsor of the Snake Sports Talk Show. With a list of over hundreds of events to choose from, SeatGeek will assure you that you won't miss your seat with the amazing view of your choice at the most affordable price. Whether it's looking for your best seat in the house of your favorite sports team, finding live concerts that get you closer to your favorite artist, or enjoying your spot at your favorite live shows, comedies, and more, SeatGeek has it all just for you. Go online to SeatGeek.com or download the app on your mobile device through Google Play and the App Store. And as a special offer before checkout, use promo code SNAKESPORTS and save yourself $20 off of your purchase of your first ticket and experience why SeatGeek is the most trusted ticketing app for your next event. Remember, that's SeatGeek.com and download the app on your phone with promo code SNAKESPORTS for $20 off and find your seat with SeatGeek.
Listen up, sports fans. Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
Welcome back here, Snake Sports Talk Show. Appreciate you. Man, I'm getting fired up with college football, but that's exactly what college football does to you. Get your blood pressure pumping. So I watched one of the exciting games that I really did enjoy, and it wasn't just, Houston and Kansas City, but the other game that I really did enjoy was Green Bay and Chicago. And look, either one of those teams, they were very competitive from beginning to end. And it was all defensive. It all started up defensive until it got clever and it got creative. And I think we're starting to see a trend a little bit here. But I got to give props to Chicago. Chicago really did play a very good game. And even if, Green Bay cheeseheads are drinking their beer and eating their cheese and basically screaming out, "We still own the Bears," it didn't matter. Because in the end, I got a great football game. Because Kyle Monangai, and you watched exactly how physical it was in the trenches. They were fighting, noses down in the ground, and they were hitting each other. And they were hitting each other hard. These were not even easy hits. And so I really thought about this. And Chicago has really changed a lot of their culture. And I'm proud of Chicago for doing that. I'm proud of them because finally it's taken a really long time to do so. And now this is who they are. They're physical in the trenches. They create turnovers. They don't turn the ball over. They barely make mistakes. Like, this has looked really good for Chicago. And this is the first time ever that we have a highly talented quarterback in Caleb Williams that, even though, and I understand what everybody is also going to end up saying when they hear me say this. I know it was frustrating when you saw DJ Moore not get targeted the football. It was very frustrating, and I get it. But let's be honest here. It didn't take away from how competitive that entire game was from quarter to quarter. And what's also incredible is that I think with Chicago, we're going to start seeing a lot of changes happening up and into the North. And the NFC North is going to continue to get competitive with Micah Parsons being up in Green Bay, Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson. It feels like this is a manageable relationship, and they've got a very good offensive line in front of them to defend and give them time in the pocket to throw. And then on top of all of that, Detroit and Dan Campbell. Like, Dan Campbell is unapologetically him. He's fierce, he's fearless, and he takes chances. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. But my biggest thing is that he's created and changed a culture. And then there's Minnesota, who don't get distracted. Okay, don't get it twisted. Just because J.J. McCarthy threw for that many touchdowns to his tight end does not mean they've solved their quarterback. Come back to me next week. And if things start to change up, because you got to make Justin Jefferson happy in Minnesota. That's one of the biggest takeaways. And if you don't, that's going to serve a problem within itself. But I think this right now is probably arguably the best shift in the NFC North that I have seen in a long time. And it's finally going to get better. The Bears are not bums. And on top of all of that, they are not exactly the team that are easy pushovers. They're not. They're competitive, they're competent, and they understand it a lot. And that's probably the one things we should all be tipping our caps to for Chicago more than anything else, because finally they've got a coach. Finally, they've got, some competency in this organization. Finally, they do. It's taken them a while, but it's worked out, and it's worked out for the better. And I'm liking it. And I think Chicago, even though with a loss, I'm not putting my head down on that. This is arguably one of their most competitive and best losses that they've had, and especially against the division rival. So don't hang your head, Chicago fans. Eventually, you're going to figure this all out, but you can be happy of the fact that things are changing. And that's you should be happy about too. So, interestingly enough, because tonight we got Philadelphia and the Chargers here in about 2 minutes. So it's going to be a fun game because, of course, Monsters, Inc., I love the movie, and I love Disney, and I love Pixar. And, it's really something, because this game is going to obviously test the physicality of both these teams, the Eagles and the Chargers. The Chargers right now don't have a great O-line, but we know business is business when it comes to Jim Harbaugh. Okay. And Jim Harbaugh, we know, is an absolute catalyst for overcoming a lot of adversities more than anything. And they understand that. And that's one of the biggest takeaways there. One of the big things about this is that this game, and Justin Herbert is playing in it. And we know that this is not going to be one of those simple, it's not going to be one of those simple and easy games that you can just walk away with. Philadelphia's got a bad taste in their mouth after they lost to Chicago on Black Friday. Okay, we all know that. So they're trying to end up, rebounding. They're trying to get better. They're trying to figure out themselves. And so that's where the offenses look stagnant. But a lot of this is because the Chargers know is that even if they deal with a quarterback of Jalen Hurts' stature, and mind you, they haven't faced each other in 4 years. Last time they did, they were in Philadelphia, and Justin Herbert got the win. So one of the big things is that this game is going to completely determine how determined is Justin Herbert, healthy and competent-wise, Jim Harbaugh utilizing every one of his smarts and his football maniac mind, and how he's going to end up overcoming all of that. And then for Philadelphia, it's going to be more physical football on defense. And Nick Sirianni making the right plays and the right calls, especially when you got Kevin Patullo. Like, things have not looked bright, and everybody is not happy. And that's the part Philadelphia, like, Philadelphia, in my opinion, like, they're emotional, but for them, they can figure out some things. So, biggest argument and takeaway more than anything else is that I think this is going to come down to both these teams, because the line moved to 1.5. It was at 2 at one point, and then it moved to 1.5. And arguably, and in full honesty, it will certainly require them to ad lib more than you think, more than you would want to know. So I think it's going to be a competitive football game. I also do think that it's going to require them to really overcome a lot of those adversities. And it's also going to require them that they're going to have to start thinking outside the box. And you also got to think about this too. This was crazy. But think about this. Why Justin Herbert doesn't really have a whole lot of love. But here's what's interesting. Looking at Mahomes and Herbert, I apologize for my radio audiences, but win-loss records this season, when Mahomes is pressured 10-plus times or more, he's 2-7. Receivers have 2 or more drops, 2-5. And then 20-plus points allowed up and onto the offense, they're 2-7. Now let's go to Herbert, because Herbert has been the catalyst of having to deal with difficulty with their offensive line and pressures all season long. 10-plus pressures, he's 6-4. Receivers that drop 2 or more passes, 4-3. And 20-plus points allowed, 4-4. Herbert is having the adversity season of his career. And that part right there is what tells you how special Justin Herbert can be. It'll be an interesting game. And it's going to be determined by him. So enjoy it. I think it's going to be a fun game. Alrighty, folks. We had a lot of stuff that were just, not working up for us. But appreciate all of you guys for being here tonight. Thursday night, book your calendars, because former Chiefs cornerback Eric Warfield is going to be joining us here up and onto the program. We're going to be talking about the Chiefs' woes right now, their division rival matchup against the Chargers next week, and then what's happening with the state of the kingdom itself. No longer winning the division title for the 9 straight years that they've had. That got snapped. So it's going to be interesting. I'm going to love this interview more than anything else, and I hope you guys can join with me too. Check it out, guys. Tune in. We'll see you guys up on Thursday. Enjoy the Monday Night Football game. Take care of yourself, and we'll see you soon.